Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Tell Your Story. I'm Todd Nesloney, an elementary principal in Texas, and I'm thrilled each week to bring you somebody that has inspired, encouraged, challenged, or I've heard about their story in some way or another, and given the opportunity to amplify some of their stories, and hopefully you get to have the opportunity to learn from them. I am thrilled this week to have my special guest, Tim Evans, with us. Tim, thanks for joining us. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about who you are?
Thanks, Todd. Thanks for having me on. So I'm Tim Evans. I'm based in Hong Kong. So I'm at a school here in Hong Kong called Stanford American International School, where I am the educational technology coordinator. I'm originally from Wales, Europe. So that's where I was born and raised in rural West Wales. So then I would have taught there for 3 years. Then I jumped over to Spain. So I was in Spain for 6 years, where I met my wife. And then we moved here 2 years ago, 18 months ago. Exciting story with the school here specifically is the fact that the school we opened the school 18 months. So I was part of the original first people in the school, the first team to get it set up. Great experience to be part of, to be involved with. So something that we're still growing, we're still building things now as we speak.
So, you grew up in Wales. How do you even end up where you are now? Like, how do you even hear about this career in another country that you want to go and seek out?
It almost just naturally happened. It was my mum's a primary teacher, elementary teacher, and all my inspiration came from her. So I looked up to her just from when we were younger. Being in a local small area, we'd go to the store with her on the weekend, and kids would come up to her, and you could see how important the teacher's role was to the kids. So there was always something we were grown up around that idea of teaching, of schools and what have you. And so then it naturally progressed. Then I saw what my mum was doing, something that I wanted to get into. So I originally started teaching middle school, secondary school, ICT. Back when it was ICT, I mean, it's evolved so much in the last 10 years. The fact when it was literally, we were teaching the Microsoft Office suite, basically. So we do a lesson we'll do a semester on Word, a semester on Publisher, that kind of thing. And then as that kind of role in schools evolved, I think me personally, I was in the right time at the right place in the career wise. So my role evolved with that. So where technology really became focal in schools, my role kind of adapted, which saw me move over to Spain, where I started to look more at the technology in other subjects. So where it could be implemented, integrated throughout the school. So I was there for 6 years, where I met my wife. So my wife's Spanish. And then it was her idea first, saying, no, I'd like to live abroad. And I was thinking, like, I can't really tell you, no, you shouldn't be living abroad when I'm currently living abroad. So then we looked at options then, and we loved Asia, Southeast Asia. We'd all used to travel, China, even India. So then that was a natural place for us to start looking. And then this position came up here then, and it was something that I had to jump at. Even I remember my mum said there's not many teachers who get to 50, 60 years old at the end of their career who have had the opportunity to start a school, to be part of a cohort of teachers who have actually opened a school. So she said, this is something you have to jump at.
Right.
Which got me thinking, and if it comes from mum, it's serious. So we thought, like, let's have a look at that then. And then we explored Hong Kong.
So, you talked about your mom being an educator. Did you always want to be a teacher?
I'll be completely honest with you. No, not. It was. I was one of those teenagers that probably, if I was in your classroom, you wouldn't be my best fan or something, because I was just one of those kids that I was big on sport. Rural Wales, so there wasn't that idea of the technology. It was all about the outside. So I was one of those students. So I never really thought about it. But then all of a sudden you get to 17, 18, before you start looking at going off to college, university, what you want to do. And then you start thinking then. And it may well, I'm actually thinking out loud now, it may well that it was a safe haven to go down the same route as my mum, maybe. Now I'm thinking. So that was maybe why I looked in at the teaching side of things. So I knew I had her support and her advice there. because it's funny actually, because my brother, he's a teacher as well, so I'm one of
Really?
twins. My brother's a teacher. Yeah, both of us in technology, ICT. So we're
The
both teaching.
twins
Yeah,
in both education and in the technology side.
exactly the same. Yeah, so he's actually he's still teaching in Wales, so he's teaching in Green
Okay.
Hills School in West Wales. He loves it. We both did different career paths, different ways, but what he did, he's happy with, and I'm the same then. But it's good if I could get advice on what each other are doing or something. So
Yeah.
that's good to have.
So obviously you're teaching in a very different environment than where you went to school.
Completely
What are
different.
you
Yeah.
seeing is like what has been the biggest eye-opening moment for you in being in such a different environment?
Hong Kong especially, but I mean, talking about my brother, I was talking to my brother over Christmas about it, where Hong Kong is very tech. Everything's technology. Kids are walking around on devices, parents, everything. I mean, you get in a cab, and the driver will have 6 phones up on his dashboard. Everything is technology led. So that's a challenge almost to get them off technology to start off with, and then when they're on technology, using it productively. So we have parents asking us about screen time. How much screen time? Well, I personally think if they're using that screen time productively, creatively, then there isn't such an issue on screen time. It's when it's wasted screen time. That's when there's the issue. Well, I was discussing this with my brother, and he said it's the same globally. He says he's got kids in rural Wales who are stuck to their phones.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just here. Here's a bigger challenge, yes, and technology easily accessible by society basically here. So that's the main difference from when I was in school. Everything is, what are we going to do on our iPad today? Where before it wasn't. You would go off to the technology room. You go off to the ICT suite where you would have your rows of PCs,
Mm-hmm.
and that would be, you do that once, if you're lucky, twice a week. Whereas now it's the given, which I think puts more pressure on teachers now to actually use it productively,
Right.
and not just get swept up in the idea of it's technology, let's just use it.
Now that's
Just,
what you're doing all day long is helping people see ways to use that technology better.
yeah, that's what we're trying to do. I mean, we've got a model here where, so my focus is to upskill the teachers, because I think the role of an elementary teacher, let alone middle school teacher as well, I mean, everyone involved in education is to be technology savvy, to be comfortable using technology. So my role principally is to upskill the teachers. So we want teachers comfortable using technology, rather than educating the students. I
Yeah.
think that's longer term. That'll be more successful down the road. You'd almost put. I mean, you could argue you're putting yourself out of a job if you got everyone who's comfortable using technology. But obviously, as the technology evolves, the skill sets change as well. So we need to adapt to that. But that's the long term goal. But what we're also trying to do is to learn with the students, because the technology is evolving.
Mm-hmm.
We don't expect anybody to be 100% comfortable using something and confident using something, a device that was maybe released a month ago.
Right.
And I think if we just have that mindset that our students understand that as well and can be part of that learning process, I think, one, it makes it great fun, but two, it's being honest with the students. So we've really tried that in the last 3-4 months with augmented reality. So we've got tools, augmented reality tools, that completely new to me before Christmas, for the holidays. And then I introduced them to staff here, but we've been learning it together with the students.
Mm-hmm.
And the start of the lesson, maybe this is a new technology. I'm not 100% sure what's going
Right.
on. Neither are you as students. Let's do this journey together. Let's see if we can learn together. And I think students, they accept that and they react more to that because they understand and they see that honesty in a teacher.
So, you're working in an environment where the kids all are comfortable with technology. You've got parents who have all this technology. Do you still find yourself working with educators who are fearful of utilizing technology in creative ways?
I mean, we're lucky here. I think it comes down to a lot with actual recruitment as well. Do you mean, so being a new school, I mean, that's been part of our job description was comfort in using technology. So we are very lucky here.
Good.
But I think it's completely understandable. You put me in a music room and I'm in the corner, I'm scared. Put me in an art room, even worse, things like that.
Yeah.
So I think we just need to understand everybody has different strengths, but at the same time, then it's that growth mindset, isn't it? I know it's a phrase that gets bandied around, but it's something that we have to be willing to try new things, explore new things, willing to fail as well. I think that's important. All these things that we encourage in students, we want students to take risks and what have you. So I think if we want students to do that, I think as educators we have to look at that as well, and try our best to lead by example and be role models.
Now you're at a school in Hong Kong, and so obviously you're going to be working with all kinds of students from cultures that are different than the one that
Yeah.
you were raised in. How do you find yourself connecting with families and with students who come from very different backgrounds than you?
And the biggest challenge is language, especially with families, where a lot of our students are Mandarin speakers. All our students speak English, are comfortable speaking English, so there's no real challenge there. But when it comes to dialogue with parents, that can be a challenge, especially as part of my role. We're trying to involve parents as well in some upskilling and some parent tech sessions, as part of that community. So I try and interact with teachers, students, and parents and the home. That's a challenge then when a lot of your parents don't understand the language, what have you. That's a challenge for the school in general with any sort of marketing or publicity or notifications or anything that gets sent out of school, especially is direct contact with the home. And there is the language barrier. But you get around it. Do you mean there's a lot we've showed parents? Only yesterday we were looking at on iOS. You've got the accessibilities for speech. Well, you can translate things like on a click. And it can read it back to you and things like that. So we're trying to show people that, show students that as well. Right. So there is ways around it. It's just been open to trying things as well, just to see what works for your parents, and then if it doesn't work, look at something different then.
What have you noticed is the biggest cultural difference between the students and families that you are serving now as opposed to the families that you were with in Wales?
Maybe there's a little bit. I don't think it's the right word, but it's the first word that comes to my head now. Is confidence. Where the students in Wales were very outgoing, they were very energetic. They would actually show a lot of emotion. Where here sometimes it's hard to get a read on a student. Where the culture is introverts, so it's the complete opposite. So that's, again, it goes down to the idea of relationships, the importance of building those relationships with your students, where you can actually get a read on your student, you can actually see what's going on. And it's the same with parents as well. And so it's the same with families. Sometimes they're not keen on showing any conflict or anything like that, or they don't want to show an opinion or voice an opinion. So again, it's that different kind of culture that we have to adapt to. I'd be honest, because we've come into their culture. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's something that we have to try and adapt a little bit more to them, but also at the same time they understand they're in an international school. So then we try and meet halfway then and try and support each other.
Do you remember a particular teacher that made a really important impact on you?
The teachers I remember, the ones who knew the importance of relationships. It's those teachers. I was big on sports, so it's those teachers that would stay behind till 7-8 p.m. And at the time, you didn't really, at a young age, you didn't think anything of it. But as you grew up, you understand. You learned these teachers will share with you that they have families. Especially the sporting teachers then would stay with you late. They'd come in on the weekends and everything. And as I got into the education career, then you realised as well that the chances are they weren't getting paid extra for it. It was genuine, something that they wanted to do. So I think they were the teachers that stand out, not more than the academic teacher. I mean, we had some great academic teachers as well, and don't get me wrong, but it was those ones that understood the importance of relationships. Which then, when taken into the classroom, they were the teachers you'd go the extra mile for. If it's late on a Sunday afternoon, you haven't done your homework, but you knew it was for a Mr. Reese or a Miss Wynn or whatever the teachers were, you would then do that effort for them then, because you didn't want to let them down. And that was all based on relationships. So I think that's one thing I've tried to replicate. Then I've looked at the idea of get that relationship built first, and if it's a positive relationship, the learning will take care of itself, especially in an elementary school where these students are going to be just in school for arguably 15-20 years. So there's plenty of time for learning, there's plenty of opportunity. So if you get that basis on the relationship, And as cultures change and societies change, we're learning. You're the same. You're learning new things every year. Do you know what I mean? And we're 30 plus. So again, if that relationship is there, they can learn something in the future, that a specific topic. So I think sometimes we get dragged into curriculum. Right, we need to cover this. We need to do this. Where, especially with the internet now, you can Google, you can find anything out in seconds. So I think that those skills now are becoming more and more relevant.
Well, in the United States, I mean, I can think of moving to a different state and not having that much be different, or I can still find the food I like, or for the most part, or things like that. But I imagine moving from Wales to Spain to Hong Kong, and I know before we got on the show tonight, you said that it's been almost a decade since you've been back to Wales. What do you find yourself missing the most from back home?
It's family. It's definite that connection, especially my brother's got a little niece now. My wife's expecting, so then that started with thinking, all right, well, how is that going to look in 10 years' time? And they're going to be aware of really close to their uncle, to their cousins, and what have you. So it's family more than anything. I think Hong Kong's so international. I mean, you want a pizza, you can get a pizza. You want a burger, you can get a burger. You want a steak. I mean, Hong Kong's great for that. So food-wise, it isn't. It is the family. And we were chatting this week about time zones. So like sometimes you just can't catch each other for Skype. So I'm trying to get hold of my dad and what have you, and things. I miss him and so it is that's the biggest challenge is family. We talk about technology brought everyone closer, but
Did I lose?
make the most.
I lost you for a second there, so I was making sure you were still there. Can you hear me? What about now? Oh, the joys of tech. So he dropped out for just a second, but I think he'll be right back in a minute. We've got a couple Wi-Fi issues, but oh, here he is right now. Let's see. Joining. It shows that he's joining, so should be here in just there he is.
Yeah, there he is. Yes, I don't know who I was talking about technology and Skype, and look what happened.
I know. I was thinking the same thing. I was thinking that's technology. The moment that you're talking about it or needing it is the moment that it fails.
Yeah, we planned that.
Exactly.
And yeah, that's a prime example of it. Do you know what I mean? So when you want to get hold of someone, you want to talk to someone, sometimes it doesn't make it possible for both parties. So it's family, definite, without doubt.
What is something you find yourself really passionate about right now?
I'm at the moment on the idea of risk taking, especially with technology. Where we love seeing teachers really getting out of their comfort zone, and almost something I'm really trying to push them as well, to push boundaries, try and get them out of that comfort zone. We got our Mandarin teachers now who are great department and everything, but the idea of teaching Mandarin in Hong Kong and in this part of the world is very pencil paper, very, very structured. The parents want the idea of children writing and things like that. So we've got them looking at virtual reality, and we've got them exploring Apple Pencil, how they can start using that. So where they're used to having books and books and books, they're now creating booklets and in pages and what have you, using Apple Schoolworks. So they're really pushing boundaries on that idea, and you can see they're out of their comfort zone, but they're accepting it. So that's something I think we're using them now as a showcase to show other departments how flexible they are to try something, and they'll be the first to put their hands up along with me and say this might not work. However, let's give it a go. Let's see how it works. So that's at the moment something that.
Do you speak multiple languages?
I speak Welsh. I speak Spanish. And a little bit of French. My Mandarin. Well, here Hong Kong's a strange one because it's Cantonese. So it's almost, and they only speak Cantonese in Hong Kong. So I would start it. This is I'm giving myself an excuse already. So I'm not pushing myself to learn Cantonese for the simple reason that it only serves me in Hong Kong. So if it was Mandarin, if I was in Shanghai or something, I'd probably look to learn Mandarin, because it's something that you never know. You could still go to another part of the world and it could still be something that could serve you. But Cantonese, we do the local good mornings, how are you, and things like that. But to actually start classes, we haven't done it for that simple reason. That's what we're telling ourselves anyway.
That's so, I find that so often with when I'm talking to people from other countries, they're so multilingual in what they've grown up with and what they've learned, whereas in the United States oftentimes we're so monolingual. We've got
Yeah.
English or English.
UK,
There's not a ton of language, but it's just so natural for people overseas to have multiple languages that they grew up learning.
I think UK is similar to the US in that sense of things. I mean, so I went to Spain, so just 6 years in Spain, and if I would put you in Spain for 6 years, you would learn the language simply because you can read it. So you can see. So you go into a restaurant, you can see agua, so you can read it. But if you come to I'd say an Arabic country or Mandarin or Russian or Greek, where all of a sudden you can't even read it. It switches you off. So Spanish, I mean, you just learned it. You got France, you can start learning things. Le Metro, you're reading it, so that's the start of you learning it. But with Mandarin or languages like that, I got a friend, actually, funny story. He has learned Cantonese from menus, but he doesn't know what the word is. He can't pronounce it. You can't read it. He's learned the picture. So he will look at a menu. He knows that, right? That symbol is chicken. So he's showing off to everyone, that's chicken, that's beef. But when the lady comes, he doesn't know how to say it. So he's learned it. He's learned the picture. You mean? That's awesome. a funny story.
So my last question for you is, if you were to leave this conversation hoping people understand one thing or one thing that you really want the message to be out there about, what is that one thing?
I'm going to be greedy and say two things. Get the relationships, I think. Build on relationships, but then more for me, technology then is take risks. Have a go with technology, even if you don't feel comfortable. Involve your students in the learning process, the journey of exploring how it works and what have you, and give it a go. And if it doesn't work, who cares? Genuine. If it doesn't work, we've actually learned probably more than it working. So then just have a look at other things then, and give it a go. That's basic.
Awesome. Well, Tim, I so appreciate you coming on. I've loved following your stuff online, and I know that we were really working to make these time zones line up for us. So thank you so much for being able to do this, because I know it's a Tuesday night here, but it's a Wednesday morning there.
Yeah.
So
I can thank you, actually. Shout out to you as well. I mean, I think what you're doing is great, because I think so many people have stories that we might not think are stories, but then when you actually sit down and chat with someone, we've got so much to learn from each other and actually share from each other. And we're in the same journey together. Do you mean we all want the best for our students? So
that's right.
Good for you. Thank you.
And thank you, everybody, for listening or watching tonight. We hope you enjoyed another great conversation with another guest. And I hope that through every episode, the same goal remains, that you get out there and be brave enough to tell your story, because every story matters. Have a great night, everybody.